All right, hello everybody. What's up? How's it going? It is December 2nd, 2023, and this is Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. Tonight, we got a guest ghosting. I haven't heard from Isaac all day. Tried multiple times to get in touch with him, and unfortunately, still not here. So we'll give it a little bit, but I'll hang out with you guys. If he does show up, he shows up. If not, we'll give it about a half hour or so and see what's what. Other than that, I'm going to put the link in the chat for you guys. And I always hope when people do this that they're okay. But goodness gracious. Yeah. So, I don't know if anybody knows Isaac. I don't really know much of him. I know of him. I was looking forward to getting to talk to him tonight. But I haven't heard from him, and that's been that. It seemed like he was going to write down that he would be here tonight. But of course he's not. So we will continue with the show. I'd say probably about a half hour or so. And we'll give it maybe a minute or two more than that, depending on you guys. If you want to pop in the chat, I've got the link for you right here. Feel free to stop on by. Anything you guys want to talk about tonight, I'm open to it. We'll do at least a half hour, like I said, and then other than that, I'll get back to fulfillment. I got a lot of stuff to do, so I'm happy to do it. All right. Before we do any of that, before I get anybody on here that may be in the green room or maybe joining, I do want to say a couple things. I want to say that the fulfillment on the alternate campaign for the recent new books, like Blood Realm 13, Red Koi 7, Unit 44 8, Wolf and Batsy 8 and 9, that is about 85% completed. I'm hoping to be completed with it by Monday or Tuesday. I'm on pace for that so far. About 40 or so more packages that need to be packed up. Other than that, the King Cryptid campaign for issues 5 to 9 is still funding. We are about 400, a little bit less than 400 at this point, away from the 30K stretch goal milestone. Thank you guys so much. 796 backers on board have helped make that possible. 4 backers away from 800. You guys are incredible. Thank you guys so much for that. So those are just the 2 quick little announcements. And then other than that, I want to say hello to those of you in the chat. We got Rick Saylor here. What's up, Rick? What Geeks Do Network says, hey, Pete, excited for the show. Was wondering if you could give a shout out to my best bud, Ben Spar. It's his birthday, and he loves your show as much as I do. Oh, man. Well, happy birthday to you, Ben. Hope you're doing good. Hope you have a great one. And I'm glad you're digging the show. Levi Skeen is here. What's up, Levi? Hope you're doing well. Charlie's here too. Says, here we go. I got here early this time. Hope y'all doing well. Well, 1 out of every 20 or 30 of these, we get a no-show. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you, Charlie. Let's see. Charlie says, sorry, I don't think that emoji loaded on my phone. Oh, the emojis are always strange. Yeah. Brian Suddenly Old. What's up, Brian? Hope you're doing good. We got Tippy Tail McKitty here. What's up, Tippy Tail? Hope you're doing well. Mighty Joe is in the chat as well. What's up, Mighty Joe? Dr. Mask is in the house, too. What's up, Dr. Mask? Word Wizard is here. How's it going, Word Wizard? Hope you're doing good. We also have, let's see, Rachel Brinkley. What's up, Rachel? Hope you're doing well. Lieutenant Hughes, what's up? Yeah, it does. It does. I tell you, it is what it is. These things happen. Like I said, I always feel like, my first thoughts go towards, I hope everything's okay. Especially when I haven't heard from someone all day. Or you could be Kelsey Shannon, and I don't hear from you for a month. And then I don't hear from you still. Even after you pop up on Twitter. But that's kind of Kelsey's thing. I don't know why. Red Centric, what's up, Red Centric? Hope you're doing good. Let's see here. Tippy Tail says, I just got mine. Have to read them. Oh, good. Good stuff. I'm glad. I hope you dig them. Mighty Magic is here too. What's up, Mighty Magic? Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Mighty Joe says, I got my tracking for it, but it has been in Las Vegas for 3 days. Tracking is super weird lately. I'm seeing it across the board. Things that, I mean, it's just the time of year too. But I'm seeing certain packages just like stuck in places for a week, or not picking up from place to place, or so be as patient as you possibly can. I'm doing my best. I don't have any control over that. I also don't have any control over the cost of postage. People have been kind of, and I get it, it's expensive when it comes to international. But at Alterna, we have flat rate shipping. So if you're in the U.S., it's $6, no matter how much you get, $6, right, in one shot per order, right? Same thing for international. I think Canada's 25, and outside of that's 40. Now, of course, if you order one comic and you're outside of the U.S., that's going to be really expensive. So I don't recommend ordering just one comic, and I'm not trying to upsell more comics, even though obviously, why not? But at Alterna, the comics are like $2 or less. So if you're gonna go in there and you're gonna order and you're outside the U.S., if you start ordering 20 to 40 comics, you're gonna then notice, wow, the shipping's not that big of a deal, because it stays at what it is. So no one else will do that. It's expensive. Shipping internationally is expensive. And if you do order a big old bundle of comics, we do end up taking a little bit of a hit on that to make sure that you guys can do that. So I wish, heck, don't we wish everything was free? But that just ain't the world. So unfortunately, when it comes to stuff like that, if you're upset with the cost of postage, if you're upset with the customs fees or whatever, let your local post office or government know. I can't do a thing about that. I wish I could. Tippy Tail says holiday season will screw stuff up. That's true. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Rachel says the only thing that makes that Jack show watchable now is I just don't know who that is. Sorry, Rachel. Seer of all is obvious as Kelsey always makes me think of Tommy Chong. Interesting. Huh. I don't get that at all, but okay. Okay. Mighty Joe says it's not UP. USPS is always awful. Almost always awful. Almost. I gotta say mine, and I haven't had many great experiences with local post offices, but my current local post office has been unbelievable, fantastic, incredible. They've just been a blast, wonderful to work with, just great. They're almost like, I mean, they're almost like having my own shipping department, other than they don't pack stuff up. But the way that they will help me out when things are going askew, they'll call up other post offices, they'll see, what's what, they'll get down to the bottom of certain things. They can't always fix everything, but they try, and they go above and beyond. So they've been great. But I am aware many post offices are not like that. Mine is the exception to the rule. Dr. Mask says, I'm in the U.S. and wouldn't dream of just ordering 1 or 2 comics at a time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We have so many things at Alterna. So not just, I mean, we got like maybe over 100 comics easily to order from at this point. Maybe less than what we had now, because a bunch of them have been unlisted. I hope you guys did get them. The Dollar Bin had a bunch of comics, about maybe 30 or so. They're not there anymore. Taken off the site due to obvious like contractual reasons. But we still have a ton of great comics, a lot of merch, all that stuff too. That applies too. The merch and everything applies as well. So, when people are like, oh, I'm not going to order one comic, that cost of shipping is that. And I'm like, well, it's flat rate. Flat rate. So you order as many as you'd like of anything that you'd like on the site. And in that one time, that's it. The shipping freezes. Doesn't go up. Tippy Tail says still way cheaper than most Indiegogo campaigns. Thank you. Appreciate that. What Geeksu says got my alternate order today. Thanks, dog. You're welcome, man. Hope you enjoy it. Tippy Tail says media email takes about a week to reach me in Wisconsin. That's not too bad. Dr. Mask says Dr. Mask Retro Electric says I have 3 post offices within driving distance. I skipped the closest one because the people at the others are so much cooler. Yeah, look at that. It's always cool. It's good to have people within the post office system that are helpful and friendly and all of that. I find that lately I have to give customer service to the people who work at the store. I don't know. Is that a thing? I'm going to have like an old man rant for a second here. I see you in the back there, Charlie. I'll bring you on 1 second. But it's something I'm getting really tired of lately. And this is just probably me. I don't know. Maybe it's other people too. You go into a store and you got to say hello first. Then when you're paying and everything, you got to tell them first, have a great day. I got to be patient and give customer service and be extra friendly to the people who work in the store. It just feels like, and I don't know if it's just because that's what I've been accustomed to doing, running my own business or doing whatever for so many years. But it hit me the other day and I'm like, I'm really tired of that. And I'm not going in there being rude to anybody at all. But there's so many times you go into a store, or I go into a store, I should say, because maybe your experiences are completely different than mine. And people don't acknowledge you. They don't say anything. They make you feel like, oh, great, you're here, huh? They make you feel like, well, I mean, why you gotta come in today and spend money in this store? Could you go to some other store? That's what it feels like. And the other day we were at a store and we were, something should have been done and we were waiting for it. And the way that the whole thing went down, they were obviously more concerned with letting other people know what was what, and while we were just standing there the whole time. But we were there even before the other people were there, and didn't want to say a word to us, didn't want to give an apology about it, didn't want to do nothing. And I was like, you want to just go? Just like the attitude, giving you kind of like stink eye, or giving me stink eye, I should say. And then just kind of treating you like, I just wish you weren't here. And so I just feel like, yeah, I don't need to be here, I guess. We'll go somewhere else. So very strange. And I feel like that's been happening more and more lately. Now, it's not across the board because I did have one very, very, very nice experience the other day at a store where the customer service was fantastic and they were kind and normal and decent. But it just seems like that kind of nicety on a simple level is just going to the wayside. I don't know. Like I said, excuse the old man rant or whatever, but I feel like it's strange. Like I got to go to a store and give customer service to the people who work at the store. Be kind and understanding and patient with them on everything, as opposed to the other way around. Let's see. Dr. Mass says, yeah, younger people seem to be lax on manners in general. Tippy Tail says, Wisconsin's okay. Older people are more likely to greet you. Johnny says, not only is Alterna cheap, the quality is super high. I'm a big fan of how it's ran. I like to see more indies work in a similar way. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Paul says, ooh, it's December. Time for a new Alterna All-Star offer. Yeah, that's going to go out tomorrow. I apologize about taking a couple extra days for that, but that'll be going out tomorrow. So if you're an Alterna All-Star member, you're going to be getting an email with the latest discount for December, along with what's new in the exclusive store. Let's see here. We also have Chrisix says, Pete, would you consider teaching us how you create your comic scripts? Or are there resources you recommend? I did like I could swear I did like a feedback form or something about that. My comic strips are pretty, at this point, they're pretty loose in terms of how they're run. They're not really traditional scripts in terms of the dialogue, the narration, etc. I do scene breakdown and focus more on that. So I'm describing the scene, telling the story to the artist, and then letting them determine the panel layout, letting them determine how that is going to play out. And then I go back and forth with them during the thumbnail process. And most of the time, with the way it's described, you can even pick up one of my scripts actually. Scripts of 5 to 9 are on the King Cryptid campaign. I had 1 to 4 last year, 5 to 9 are on this year. And I think it's just $10, and it's just a signed script, and it comes in like a 6x9, 40 something pages of script, and you could see for all 5 issues how I handle that. So if I haven't gone over that, I'll go over that again one day, definitely. I swear I did. There's not much really to go over, to be perfectly honest. All right, let's see. Sinopa says, how are you, Pete? Good to see you, man. Good to see you too, man. Thank you for being here tonight. All right, so we got a couple people here waiting in the wings. I'm going to bring them on. Let's see. All right, here we go. What's up, Charlie? How you doing?
Hey, Pete. Glad to hear you. Glad to be here. It's actually funny you mentioned the script thing. I've been meaning to ask like how you do the script, your scripts in general, and if there's I don't know, an episode maybe I missed where you went over that a little better. I'd love to if you could drop it in the chat and I could go over it and watch it later, or anyone else too, because I'm finding out scripting is super important.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there's kind of a disclaimer, or at least a warning, I want to give to people before they attempt to do scripts the way I'm doing them. You have to work with artists that know what they're doing. If you go in there and you're working with someone who's not really that comfortable with drawing comics just yet, so let's say if both of you guys are really starting off, this is more of like a veteran type approach to doing it. Like you're working with people that know what they're doing and you know what you're doing. And then also I letter the comic too, so I'm in a different situation than most people would be. So I don't recommend working with someone who's not familiar with the comic scripting process. And then, I don't need to put that there. I could leave that like that. I don't recommend doing that with someone that's new with it or not as confident, because if you do that, they're going to be kind of lost. It's almost like too much creative freedom for them. They don't have an idea yet. They need more direction. They don't have too much of an idea in terms of panel composition and what's going to look good, because they just haven't done that a lot yet. But if you do work with someone who is really well versed in making comics and they've been doing it for a while, they know how to draw them and put them together, you could give them just a story breakdown, panel page by page, of how the scenes play out and what the story beats are like. And I'll say certain things like this page should be a splash page, or we're going to focus on this character because this is an important scene where they're saying something or their emotion needs to be conveyed. But other than that, I don't go in with the script and then give like a narration and dialogue and all of that kind of stuff. I do that very sparingly because I don't want the art to be I don't want the artist to feel like they have to take a step back on the art because they want to fit in all of my whatever, which more than likely will get edited and revised anyway when the art comes in. But yeah, so if people are looking for more of like a traditional script breakdown kind of a thing, most writers do like a description of the scene, but then also have dialogue and who's saying what and the panel composition and the camera angle and an idea of what to do. And of course, they always go, well, not all of them, but most say to the artist, if this is something that you think you could make look better, go for it.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that, and I think that also touches on like what was discussed in a previous podcast, where like if you don't, I feel bad for blanking on the man's name, but he was saying how he wished he had pushed for more of his own creative freedom early in his career to kind of help the art shine, rather than just letting himself be told at every stage what to draw. I feel
And that
really bad for forgetting his name.
was that on. I think you're. That sounds like Shane.
I
I don't
think it
know.
was Shane.
Yeah, I think that sounds like the interview I had with Shane.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just something that comes about. I think the more you do it, it's like anything else, you know. Because that's like basic level stuff. The nitty gritty later on and hammering out, making sure that everything looks good, comes about during the process of once the artist gets the script, they put out the thumbnails or the pencils or whatever it is, and then you approve of whatever, or maybe you give some notes back. That comes more about at that point in time, but the basic part of it of just getting the story out. And I recommend to everybody first and foremost, when you're starting off, make sure you just write your story out. So if you've got your issue, just write it out. In film, they call it a treatment, and it'll be however many pages. If it's for something like a comic, it should probably only be like 2 or 3 pages at the most in terms of just writing out how the story goes. And then you go back in there, you can rewrite it, break it down further to make sure it's more concise and that the pacing is right. And then you can kind of expand upon that for your script, however you do the script, and then go back in again, rewrite and edit down further to make sure that the pacing works and you're not spending too much time with certain things, not enough time with others, or maybe there's something that you could do where you took the 2 pages and instead you can make them one, and then you can open up that page to have something more exciting later on. So it really depends on the skill level, the experience level, that kind of thing. But it's so different for everybody. So it's really tough to give, this is the way to do it, and then everyone should do it that way, because it's the same thing with art. You can't just say everyone should just draw this way and then everyone will just go and do it that way. It's going to be different.
Makes sense to me. It's actually funny. I did have a question about manga, but I felt like you talking about that right before I came on was also very important to get out there too, especially with how critical script writing can be and how difficult it can be for first timers. Like I'm struggling with that. So, but yeah, I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Do you have another question?
Yeah. I guess it's more of a general question. Have you read much manga before, and like how, like, what do you think of how manga has seemed to really take off in the last couple of years, especially with like how the big name comics aren't like doing as good in.
Can you be a little more specific?
I guess, do you think manga is going to get bigger in the coming years, as like while indie comics are taking off?
Hmm. I suppose. I suppose it'll get. That's really tough to say because I wonder how many factors are at play that are helping manga to find an audience. And what I mean by that is, where are most of the people that are finding their manga? Where are they doing it? Are they doing it in the bookstore? Are they doing it online? Are they doing it at a comic shop? Are they doing it at a? I don't think there's really like manga shops in the
Uh,
U.S.
Not too much. No, it's mostly other comic shops that are now stocking a bunch of manga. There's like, I go to a lot of used bookstores, and they always have a manga section. It's never missing sections. New manga comes in, old manga that's been there for a while goes out. Um, and there is also a huge like amount of people reading manga online for like for free, trying their reads for free. So, but it still adds to the popularity of manga,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it's
I
crazy.
think it's going to continue to do as good as it's been doing, and maybe a little bit better here or there. I think there's still going to be like a cap on it. I don't think we're going to see the same kind of bubble burst though that the what happened to the comic industry, unless of course the manga industry starts doing the same kind of practices where they place gimmickry above
Yeah,
storytelling. But it's funny to me the way that it is going, and everyone is just really confused by how it's working out because it's
yeah,
not that.
it's big, man. It's I don't mean to sound like rude, but like a lot of people who are new to manga are being like, man, this is crazy, and it's not even in like a mean spirited way, and it's like I'm just kind of blown away by like the stories they're told. Like if you know what isekais are, it's yeah, there's just a ton of isekais and all these different ways of doing it. There's one where a dude turns into a vending machine, and it's like, and there's a whole manga about that. That's actually a show now. It's animated.
Yeah, they got everything over there, and then
They
it's
really do.
yeah, and that's the funniest part is, um, in the American comic industry, particularly the corporate comic side. I think the past couple, what is it, 5, 8 years, something like that. I don't know. They've been harping a lot about diversity and whatever it is, but it's like they should be diversifying their storytelling. They should be looking at themselves more as publishers than as like universe creators, but
That'd be
that's
nice.
yeah, but it's like, and at the same time I'm like, well, you might have people in there that wish they could be that way, but the parent companies that own them, that's obviously not the directive. That's not the direction they want to go down.
It
So
really ain't. No.
yeah, so that's why it's so strange, but I think it's going to be like manga and indies in a big way, like indie comics in terms of that are going to continue to keep rising. Uh, it's the industry that we have right now is so strange in comics because there's so many things that are so utterly wrong. You can't fix one thing. Like you could have the great like stories. All the stories are fixed. They're all great. They're amazing. We resurrected everybody that's amazing from back from the dead, and they're all in all the books again. You could literally do that. You could just say, let's do that. Let's literally raise people from the dead so they can make amazing comic books again. Or put people who are out of their prime back in their prime. Okay, that's great. You know how many things are wrong with the industry that still wouldn't fix it? So it's one of those things where, yeah, making the great books would help in some ways, but distribution is broken, retail's broken, the way that the publishers work and what they want to see put out is broken. So you can have all these great creators wanting to create great stories, and if anyone's out there that really wants to do that, they're gonna go indie. So, and I think it's more of like a war of attrition in terms of manga is gonna look like they're gaining more ground, but what is really happening is Western comics, particularly within the top whatever five, are losing ground. So
Yep.
it's not so much that like there's more and more and more manga readers out of the blue, and the comic readers for everybody else has kind of stayed and plateaued. It's gonna kind of be like like this sort of like thing where they're going down and then they're going up. So it's so strange. Yeah, what geeks do. Yeah, when I was semi arguing with Mark Millar about his whole like pay him the 50%, the royalty on pithy sales. Millar's whole idea when he was talking about like royalties are triggered at like 50,000 sales, and all of this is he was giving some strange numbers that don't quite add up, and I know that they don't add up and they're not spot on, and I know that for a fact. Like, there's no one that's a top tier creator at the big two that's getting $90 a page, and if they are, they're a freaking idiot. So it's to use that argument that he was making was crazy, but using what he was saying that they get royalties and that they're very little and that they get triggered at a certain mark, and that so he used a number of 50,000 copies. They get triggered at 50,000. So at 60,000, instead of giving them 2% of the royalties, give them 50%. And then you'll get in all of these top tier creators and you can still keep paying them at $90 a page. Well, that's bullshit. That's not going to happen. There's no top tier creator who's going to go on a book, work on it 6 months to a year in advance for $90 a page, and hoping that in our broken system that it pans out so that they have a windfall of royalties later on. And then there's no way that you go into the boardroom at any publisher and go, hey, we're giving them 2% right now. How about we give them 50%? And they're going to be like, brilliant. Why don't we
know.
give them more money for failure? Why didn't we think of that? You
Failing
know,
upwards, man.
yeah, because the whole pitch would be like, look, they're phoning it in right now, but if we give them even more of an incentive by giving them a higher royalty, they'll do better and we'll get better talent to come back. It's like, what? So we're rewarding performance failure. That's like if you go to a sports team, like I'm into hockey. So if you go to a sports team and this dude that should score 50 goals a year is scoring 5, and you're like, look, we're going to give you a pay raise, right? But we're expecting that you're going to hit where you should be at. So we're feeling like you're just not applying yourself. And hopefully, if we give you even more money on top of the tremendous amount of money we're already giving you, that you'll do better. Instead of being like, no, this dude's not performing, he's gone. We're trading him, we're dropping him into free agency, whatever. No, we're going to offer you even more money at contract negotiation time because you didn't perform this season. That's like, what? So I'm just like, this is a brilliant strategy, Mark, to, fleece your competitors.
Oh, totally. It seems like that's kind of how it is with like in Hollywood in general. It's like, oh, they just know the right amount of people, and it's like, oh, the movie failed. But hey, I know I have the right name. I know the right people, and I'll get even more money, and it'll keep going. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, is that it doing the whole let's give them more money and then they'll make better books or we'll get better creators in. Now creators should be paid, of course, based on what they're bringing to the table and how much that book is selling. Sure. Absolutely, right? But at the same time, if we're talking about the system being broken and that a way to fix it is that's not the way to fix it. And I know he probably doesn't want to say, look, a big thing that needs to happen is that there has to be a sea change at corporate. People who made those decisions need to get fired. He's friends with many of them, so he's not going to say, all my friends, you guys got to get fired. So he's not going to say that. And that's what needs to happen first and foremost. And then the second thing that needs to happen would be, listen, distribution and retail is largely crap in the comic industry for one reason or the other. He's not going to say that because he depends on those distributors and retailers, so he's not going to step on their toes. So instead, he's appealing to the creator and is like basically saying, without saying it, hey, if I was running things, I'd pay you more. And then you get some people that would sniff out that and then approach him and go, if I worked for you, would you give me half of those profits? So then that's a conversation opener. That's what that is. But meanwhile, you look like you care about everybody. I mean, this is how business is. This is how people in business work. So it's like when people are thinking there's some kind of charitable advice being given or some kind of sage wisdom being offered, it doesn't make any sense. We all work various jobs. Can you imagine going into your job and you fail time and time again? And then you go, yeah, you know what? I'll start doing better if you pay me about 1,000% more.
Nah. I've seen people do that, and they get fired pretty quickly.
Yeah, you got to go in there to negotiate and have leverage. You got to go in there and say, I do this, this, and this, and I'm irreplaceable. I'm valuable. That's why you need me. I'm bringing in the big bucks for your company. I'm doing great. I'm doing all these things that you couldn't possibly do with somebody else. This is what I bring to the table. That's how you have leverage in negotiation. You don't have leverage in negotiation going, yeah, I fail time and time again, so give me more money.
A lot of people are going to get a hard life lesson if they try and do that.
Yeah. I can't imagine that working out for anybody. I wouldn't want to hire even a freelancer to work on King Cryptid or anything like that. I mean, heck, I deal with people even at Alterna that are creators that it's 100% creator owned at Alterna, and then they get 80% of the profits. So I'm making pennies per book essentially. And then people are like, well, why isn't this like why aren't we making more money? And I'm like, well, what are you doing to push it? Let me help you. So I'll let them know what they need to do, and I'll go over it with them, and I'll say, okay, do this, do this, do this, follow this game plan, and then let's evaluate in a quarter. And then the quarter comes up, the results are the same or or worse. And throughout the whole time, I'm like, you're doing this, you're doing that, and they're like, yeah, I'm doing this, doing that. And then I look and evaluate everything at the end of the quarter, and I'm like, okay, you said you did this, you didn't do that. You said you would do that, you didn't do that. What have you been doing? And then they usually aren't doing anything. So what happens is that they're expecting success. They're expecting different results, doing nothing different, not even following the game plan despite me. And then when they go, well, look, I did everything you told me to do, and it's still not working. Now what's your plan, genius? Nothing. So like, there's been people like that over the years where that's occurred, and I can't imagine being in that situation where I would then go, you know what? I'll give you even more money. I'll give you 100% of everything. I'll work completely for free, totally, and then that'll make you motivated. Again, giving someone 50% of the profit split, I'm giving people 80% of the profit split, and they have 100% ownership of their property. And for some people, that is still not motivation enough. So I know firsthand that that's not really going to motivate a lot of people. If anything, it kind of makes them almost sit more on their hands about it.
Yeah, it's one thing to give someone a second chance, but it's another thing to try and double down, and especially when there's proof of the failure and a loss. And I'm not saying anything about anyone working for you, obviously, but it's like, if someone does do that, it's like, where can you go with that? And then you have to think about this in a business sense. It's not going to be very profitable.
If everybody starts doing that kind of mentality, you're not in business for much longer.
No.
So everybody needs to pull their weight. And the same thing that happens within this industry is the same thing you can say among a publishing company, is that it's cliche, but it's true. It's only as strong as its weakest link. So the comic industry has many weak links, and none of them are ever being addressed by anybody with any kind of power to do so, or influence. So it's going to stay that way until it's inevitably completely broken, beyond repair, which it's getting there, sadly.
It does suck, especially me coming in to reading comics very like later in life, like in the past couple of years mostly. And it's like, well, I'm coming in with everything seems broken, but at the same time, I'm also coming in as a creator. It's like, I don't like the thought that everything is failing, but because everything is, maybe I can make something better. And I'm sure a lot of people in like the audience, me included, thought I could do this story better. I'm listening to an audiobook. I can write this better. I've had that same thought, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah, but that's the other thing, though, is I don't want to make it sound like, and this actually kind of ties into what I wanted to talk to Isaac about tonight. I don't want to make it sound defeatist, because there's problems that are occurring, and too often in recent times, when you address problems, people often want to kind of dismiss you as being negative or being defeatist or whatever. Addressing problems and trying to come up with solutions is completely not what defeatism is. That's how you move forward in life. That's how you actually can get past the rough spots. So looking at it, I'm seeing that it's great. It's better than ever before to be an independent. So if you're coming up and you're starting to make stuff right now, honestly, you should be very, very positive and hopeful about the outcome. In terms of, because you got to put your best stuff out there, get as good as you can get, keep learning, do as much of it as you possibly can, and then be patient with yourself, because it's going to take a while, but you're going to get there as long as you have that attitude. But if you go down into a certain other path where there's so many things that are out of your control, and that's the part about it where I think people are really stumbling, and people are seeing that it's doom and gloom. But on the independent side of things, if I had to start even today, there's no way I'd even go even looking at distribution. I would just completely keep on going direct. I mean, that's what we do right now. But if I started today, I would never have pursued the path of distribution. It's a nightmare. It's a total mess.
Yep. Direct seems to be, well, it's in the name. It's on the tin. You know where it's going. You know you put that in there in the box, send it on the way, whatever you got to do. And it seems more just reliable. And I imagine the customers appreciate that too, because then they don't have to go through a middleman to figure out, hey, where the heck's my comics, man? It's been like weeks, because I've had to do that
Yeah,
too. It's not
100%.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's why to me right now we're on it's beginning, but we're on the precipice of a new golden age in terms of independent creation, in terms of truly uh, interesting creators, interesting characters, stuff that has the potential to become iconic. And I don't mean that there's people out there right now that aren't doing a great job, but it takes time, and history will tell the tale. We just got to keep trying our best to do things that are of quality and try as much as we can to utilize what's in front of us while also being patient with the fact that it's going to take time, because that's a big part of it. People got to be patient with themselves, because this stuff, to make anything worth the effort, it's going to take time. But Charlie, before I let you go, what's your the name of your comic coming up? You have anything like that?
Uh,
Anywhere to direct people?
I apologize. I actually don't have that. Uh, I am not that far yet. I'm still in the scripting stage.
Okay.
It's the kind of thing where I don't want to put anything out publicly until I know I have at least even the first draft of the product done, and I have some people who are like, I have some people lined up for art, but we're still in like very proto stage. But I do appreciate that. Thank you though, Pete.
No problem. All right, man. Well,
Yep.
best of luck to you, and keep at it.
That's the plan, man. You too. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Take it easy. Have a great night.
You too.
See, Tippy Tail McKitty says, I just read Blood Realm 13. It was awesome. Yeah, it's a really fun issue. Really fun issue, kicking off a new story arc. Rob Geronimo does it right. Hey, Gerald Lang, what's up? Says, as we discussed last night, the creators need to treat the character and story, the book, as a business, a marketable product to hopefully drive into people's awareness, and that starts the momentum. Absolutely. I tell you, you know, you can only. All I got is cliches in me right now, leading the horse to water, lighting fires, everything else. I wish I didn't have cliches to rely on for this kind of stuff, but they're cliches for a reason. I can't tell you how many horses I've tried to lead to water. It's soul crushing. You know, to be perfectly honest and transparent, 17 years I've dealt with hundreds of creators, and I'd say that 90% of them, it was a very frustrating experience because they're so talented, so many talented people, so many good people at what they're doing, but they don't have the drive and the spark to not just make what they're making, but to let people know that they're making what they're making. And that part, I've seen people who weren't even close to as talented as some of the people that I've published over the years. But the drive, the attitude to succeed, to let people know what they were doing, they had that in spades. And they succeeded far more than very talented people who were just kind of almost like wallflowers about it. You know, I don't want to talk about my stuff. Can't I just put it on the shelf and then people just discover it? No, because as I addressed a couple minutes ago, the distribution system is broken. So you don't have distribution, and you're putting millions of copies on shelves across the country or maybe even the world. And then, oh, hey, look, it looks great. You know, people will see it, and then you'll sell books. I mean, first of all, there's no such thing as that ever. You still got to let people know about it. Someone has to, whether it's the company, the creator, whatever it may be. But that world is gone. We're never getting that world back. We're never getting the world where comics are every single place. You can't go into a store pretty much without seeing a comic book. So no, you can't. You can't just do that where you put it on the shelf and it sells itself. So at that point, you have to have a really honest conversation with yourself and go, if I'm not of the attitude where I don't want to tell people about my work, I don't like doing that. I don't like telling people to buy it. I don't like telling people about it, like even talking about the character or the story or where it is or anything along those lines. If I get defeated because it's not happening fast enough, if I'm of the mindset where every single thing feels incredibly daunting, like that idea of letting people know about what I'm working is just so harrowing. You have a lot of work to do either on yourself to get out of that attitude, or you have to seriously start thinking about, well, maybe you don't do that. And I'm just being brutally blunt with it. Maybe you just don't do that. Maybe you work and you do illustration, or you do work for hire, or you do whatever. But being an entrepreneur about it, being someone who starts it as a business where you're going to have to learn how to promote and talk about what it is that you're doing, maybe that just isn't for you. And you really need to then think about not getting other business partners involved with that. I can't tell you how many people, it's very talented people. It has been really frustrating over 17 years of just like, can you listen to me about this one and just try that? Just try that. And then, and you can be upset with me if it doesn't work. It's man, oh man. What's up, Doc? This is just showing up. You are already ahead of some guys. There you go, right? Metal Movies and Brewskis. Books don't sell themselves. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what Geeks Do Network. Yeah, it's that Rocky speech in the beginning. You go out and get what you're worth. And it's, I can't even tell you. There's a lot of people that they want to be creator owned. They want everything 100% creator owned, and then they want to make the lion's share of the money on the book that's sold. But then it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do to bring to the table? Because we got to work together. We got to work together to get this thing to succeed. One person can't be dropping the ball. So, yeah, you got to make the comic too. Obviously, that's why you're getting 100% and keeping 100% of your rights. And that's why you get the lion's share of the royalty. But then at the end of the day, you also have to bring something that is called you to the table. It's the equivalent of doing a book tour, a signing, whatever it may be, a convention. There's a lot of things that only you can do. So when it comes to talking about your book, your work, what makes you want to do what you do, that's only what you can do. If I can't do that, I don't know the inner workings of people. Yeah, I can't even imagine that. You can hype it up. I could tell you how great all the books are because I think they're great, but I can't tell you how many creators they don't get that. They don't get that aspect of it, and also how important that is to make that connection with the audience so that they can know you and see and listen to you or read whatever it is that you're comfortable with, newsletter or video or whatever, to get out there and communicate with people about what it is what you're doing and why and what it's about. And that means something to people. Otherwise, you just have the nameless, faceless, soulless entity of corporate crap that's put on the shelf and sells itself, right? And it sells itself usually through advertising and money and things that most independent creators don't have at play, especially in the beginning. But you have your time and hopefully your sincerity. And if you don't have that, you really don't have anything. An Xerd, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hey, what's going on, Pete? Can you hear me clearly?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, cool. There are some things that I guess I wanted to mention. Well, for like the manga, because that's where I come from, my history. Uh, people, I would say it's a big mixture of both. I don't think it's just that the American market is losing stuff, because coming up as a kid, you found manga in major bookstores. That's where you'd get them from. You wouldn't go to a comic book store. You wouldn't
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
and then and then on top of that, you knew about it through word of mouth. I said this like previously, like me even knowing about comics, I only knew about comics through the cartoons, and then through manga in the US it was like, okay, you'd watch the anime, or I'm from the generation, well, I'm from the generation after, but my cousin, which I spent a lot of time with, he was of the generation that you had to sneak VHS tapes, or you go to the guy with the back room and they were just like, oh yeah, we got this import, and you watch on very grainy footage and stuff like that. But then you'd find out they have a book for it, or you can read this ahead of everyone else, and then you head to your bookstore and go, oh okay, I know this story before it even gets finished, because we got the books. And then now, like you said, to your point about it takes time, I think the manga distribution has like hit a critical has hit a critical point, because now it's an entire generation of people that they got introduced through Toonami or something like that, in American programming, or WB, or they got introduced through the word of mouth, and and then you have the digital frontier that has helped, because I guess while American comics tried to do like fancy stuff with the comics, the Japanese market was just like, hey, just put the manga on the just put it on a PDF, let them read it, and if they really enjoy it, they're gonna go out and buy it anyway. And then you also had the video games that intertwined with the cartoon and intertwined with the manga. So it was just like these three components. I think the most experimental. Have you ever heard of a franchise called Dot Hack before?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they were the first ones to attempt it, but it kind of they were already doing it, but I would guess the first ones to actually promote the attempt. And that was, they were trying to do something where the games, the manga, and the cartoon or the anime all kind of lined up to give you one cohesive story, one major cohesive story. So like the anime focused on this focused on this one character and his entire journey. The games focused on another character and his entire journey, and then the um and then the manga, they focused on those characters and their entire journey. And if you ever watch Dot Hack Sign, if you get to the second to last episode, it's a very weird ending because it just cuts out, and then
Hmm.
you're expected to go play the game, because that's where the game starts up.
Oh, okay.
If you watch
Huh.
the last episode of Dot Hack Sign, it jumps forward to at the end of all the manga and the game. So it's a very, very interesting play. So, and I think with all those attempts and
Yeah,
all those,
that's incredibly immersive. I mean, we don't even have, and we,
yeah, American comics,
the
yes.
American comic industry, particularly the big two,
Yeah.
um, which are unfortunately at this point in time, man, they're still the tent pole when it comes to what's keeping the industry afloat. Even though you figure they'd go, yeah, maybe we should start shifting. That's what I talk about with the problem with the retailer.
Hmm.
Because so many retailers are just like, yeah, there's Marvel, DC, and whoever else. Even Image for most retailers is still kind of like, yeah, whatever. Uh, and then that's a huge problem. But anyway, they don't even have anything close to that level of synergy among things. I think the closest that they would have is their merchandising departments seem to understand that people want to buy the classic interpretations of
Hmm.
characters. But then when it comes to the comics, and now we're going to start seeing it reflected in the movies as well, uh, because they're following the same bad game plan of the modern comic structure. Uh, it, it, they're not delivering what worked. They're not delivering. They're acting almost as if the iconic nature of these characters and stories has kind of it's done. It's outlived its usefulness, and that's really strange to see because they're iconic for a reason. So when that kind of happens, and we see that come along, I don't think anyone should really question the motive there. It's not obviously because of people being dumb or people not liking certain things. I think it's more because these companies aren't, no one's steering the ship at these companies that wants to steer this ship. These aren't just comic book companies, you know what I mean? Like, these aren't even just entertainment companies. These are owned by big giant companies that have a lot to do with a lot of other things. And I don't want to turn the show into going down that road, because it could get into crazy town real fast.
Yeah, pretty dark.
Yeah, it could get really dark. But it seems like in manga, I don't know, that they don't seem to have those corporate conglomerate ties.
They do
just yet.
But it's a societal issue because
are they owned by?
Yeah, they have major conglomerates. They have bad situations like big guy in suits don't really care about the production. They just need to know that. But the thing is, the guys in suits, they understand how the product works. They understand that the people below, the artistic minds, need to be artistic to do that, versus the US, where it's just like, well, just make us money. We don't really care how you make it, just make us money. The Japanese do understand that the artistic thing is what made the product as it is. So you need to hire people that will continue the artistic endeavor.
Yeah.
So
that makes me I gotta start doing a deep dive into the manga industry and see what the corporate structure is tied into, because I wonder how much it either parallels or diverges from the way the American corporate structure is set up in terms of what it's beholden to and what kind of narratives it's choosing to follow and directives. Because it seems like they want to still make their money relatively the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's like they're still doing things that maybe would have been done in the 80s or 90s, as opposed to what modern corporate structure has become like.
Yeah, well, Japan is definitely a conservative country. They take caution in the things that they do, and I think a large issue that we're dealing with when it comes to the one thing you said, I think you have wrong. I don't think that the American comic industry feels that the iconicness of the characters is gone. I think they feel that it's very important to the characters. The problem is that and I've learned some of this just from going to school to be in the industry, which I ultimately just didn't keep the connections that I was supposed to keep. Is that it's society, it's a very individualist and egotistical centric situation. You got the comic industry, as far as I've learned from people, it's just crabs in a bucket essentially. You have Mark Miller. I understand where Mark Miller is coming from what other people have been saying, is that it's not so much for the failures. That money is not for the failure people. That money is to attract the successes or the people that they have benched right now in comics that are sitting there waiting by the phone for a call. That's
I get that aspect of it, but the thing is that because they work in a corporate system, the corporation itself is failing. So if the corporation is then going to decide to reward what's failing, because you're only going to be rewarding the top people who are already getting the better deal anyway. Yeah. You're not going to start attracting people. You'll be more inclined, I think, to attract people to come on a project for like $1,000 page rate that he was talking about, like what he was getting on books, than as opposed to a $90 page rate with the 50% payout. Because also that 50% payout, then it turns into, well, 50% of what and how? Because it wouldn't just be one creator getting that 50% payout. Now you're going to
Yeah.
have to divide that structurally among whoever. And now the inker and the letterer and the assistant editor and every single person that they have involved, all the 12, 13 people that now usually work on one modern comic are going to be like, well, where's my piece of that? I contributed to making that comic a success.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
think it was very well thought out. I think he was just really just talking about the writers.
yeah, it was incredibly weird, and to see people just kind of be like, oh yeah, and that'll fix everything. It's not going to fix everything at all. If anything, that's going to exacerbate the problem. That's going to make things so much worse, so much faster. I don't really care, but because it's just the way the corporate system is going already. That's going to deliver them a nice, speedy death. So independently, it's great on that respect. So if he was able to convince people to actually follow that plan,
Yeah,
he makes him like I said, it's more of a conversation starter for anybody that's on the fence that could go to him and be like, "Oh, would you offer that to me if I worked for you?" And he'd be
mm,
like, "Sure." And then he slowly just and he's made no secret moves about it. He's been very public over the years about saying that he wants to take as many people as he can from the big two.
yeah.
So, it's just to me, people that are thinking that that's a game plan that'll change things, that'll make it better.
Have you
You
been paying
still,
attention to comics recently?
what do you mean?
Like the stuff that's been going on, like for example, I mean, besides that horrendous thing that they did to Nightcrawler and Superman, well, Superboy, whatever. Um, did you know that no one wanted to touch X-Men? Not a single person wanted to touch it. They called up everyone that they could, and no one wanted to touch X-Men. And the person that's writing X-Men right now is this person called Gail Simone. And the only thing I know about her is that she talks to people like children, like when she did a YouTube video. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, Gail's been around for a while. Um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really surprise me. I don't know, honestly, why anyone would want to touch any of the corporate comic properties at this point, to
it's
be
the
perfectly honest.
iconicism, and that's what I was trying to get back to. Like they see the iconicism as because what they teach in writing in college right now is everything has to mean something. Everything has a subtext. Everything needs to be allegory for bigger issues, and the movie everybody's working on their own individualism. So you got the movie people, they're like, I'm gonna put my stamp on this, like Taika Waititi, whatever. I'm gonna put my stamp on this. I'm gonna do what I want. Forget the comics. If we can mine whatever, if we can take a character from it and make a story out of it, we really don't care. Here we go. The comic people are saying, okay, this is a vehicle. Their iconicism is a vehicle for my message. I want my message to be out there, so I'm
Well,
gonna tell a story about.
the strange part though is that it's a weird propping up. It's the Trojan horse of individualism, and inside of it is a bunch of collectivists.
Yeah,
And that's what it is that everybody's on the same page with wanting to do that and thinking that they have a unique individual point, but
yeah.
that individuality is feeding into a larger system that's backed by corporate dollars that are being pushed by collectivist agendas,
Hmm.
globalist agendas. So it really isn't. It isn't about the individual necessarily, but they're either convinced that they are being that way, or they are not just lying to themselves, but they're lying to their audience.
I mean,
So
yeah,
so I can see them going in there and thinking like, okay, that's a bigger property. I'll get noticed for it. I mean, that's obviously, I think, a big push.
yeah.
But you're going to get noticed, but you're also going to get a lot of hate for it. You're going to get a lot of pushback, and you're going to get a lot of people that aren't going to necessarily see that that's something that will stand the test of time. Like that story run or whatever it is going to become a classic. It's not
They
going to
kind
become
of
a
want
classic
that.
story.
I mean, they kind of want that. They don't really want. They're not really cared whether if it's going to stand the test of time. They're not really caring. They're not like they're not caring about that stuff. I know that thing has been misquoted so many times. I think it's the idea from Tolkien. What is it? Evil can only destroy. Um, they're so concerned about. And I would say yes. Like I feel that they've been thoroughly brainwashed um into believing these set of beliefs that they have. Well, I mean, like every story is the same kind of story of me coming out the closet, or my oppression that I'm having, or stuff like that, or these fanfics. I mean, like what they did to
Oh
the
well,
old.
there's a constant, when you break it down, there's a constant victim agenda that's being pushed all the time. It's not an empowering agenda. It's not about people that are struggling to push through something, that
Hmm.
they are a victim and they're overcoming obstacles, or they're on a journey of self discovery or whatever it is. It's a prideful victimhood, and
Yep.
that's a purposeful thing. That's a purposeful propaganda thing for people that don't believe that this kind of stuff happens and is pushed by either governments or globalist kind of
Yeah.
power structures. You could even look into things like Operation Mockingbird.
Hmm.
That in itself was using all kinds of entertainment and journalism and mainstream media and everything else to control messaging.
Yep.
This isn't like a thing that's new, but the whole reason as to why that gets pushed is because if people are constantly thinking that they can't do anything and they're powerless and they're always a victim, and you be proud that you're a victim, be proud
Hmm.
that you're powerless. That makes you easier to control. That
Yep.
makes you easier. Now you're dependent. You're not someone who's out there and like, I'm trying to be as self-sufficient as I can. I'm trying to learn as much as I can, be gain as much knowledge as I can. All these different things that put you on a path towards empowerment, towards being a more complete and whole individual. You're constantly putting yourself in a position where you feel instead like, what's the point? I can't do anything. I'm always, no matter what I do, I'm a victim. And that is so wrong. And that is the complete antithesis
And they
of
demonize success
superhero
too.
comics that are all about empowerment.
I mean, yeah, and they demonize success too. They've been bred to believe. I think Sean Gordon Murphy talks about this, where he calls it the religion of poor, where basically if you are successful, you're evil. Basically,
Yeah, yeah. So
the
you'll
starving
be
artist.
you'll be the starving artist. You'll be the underdog, and as soon as you're told when you're in that position, work for it, work for it, work for it. Well, now you did. You worked for it, and you are one of the people who then broke through and became successful. Now they point at you and go, "You're wrong. You're bad. You're
Yep.
evil." Because why? Why now? Because you're successful, not because then you did something or you were corrupt or you didn't pay it forward or anything like that. It's for the mere fact of you're now no longer the victim. So now you are the oppressor. You're bad. You're evil, and that kind of thing has been happening for so long. That's just how people within upper echelons keep
Yep.
other people that are growing in rank. They keep them down, and then they point to them and go, "See them? They're bad. They're bad,"
Yep.
because you don't want to look past them. You want to keep those eyes on the finger pointing to the moon, so you
Hmm.
miss the moon in its entirety. But there's so many things with it, and it's such a great big distraction play, and it's been going on for a long time. So when it comes to stuff like this, like, yeah, they do understand the iconic nature of the characters. I mean, that's shown when they put out merchandising, but they don't, in terms of the comics themselves. You get people coming in there that there's no reverence for it, and there's no creativity behind it. It's it's really being pushed into the aspect of, how can I manipulate and destroy these things as much as I can so I can leave my mark.
Yep.
And that's how they lure narcissistic kind of individuals to do that, uh, playing into the hands of the obviously the greater narrative. But
Yeah.
it's that's why it's just, if anybody at all is at this point sincere or genuine about wanting to create what they want to create, you're going to see them doing it independently. You're not really going to see many of these people doing it in the corporate side of comics. It's just not really happening.
That's what I disagree with. Like, I understand, Peter, like that you really you like the fact that everybody is doing all their individual stuff, but I think that there should be some degree of centralization, not because, like it or not, when people talk about comics, like I've heard ever since I've come into this whole American comics things very late, like this around the time where everything was just going down the toilet, and every time I would ask, is there any value in comics outside of Marvel and DC, and the constant answer I would get back is no. It's basically, if they fall, all comics fall. And then I get these analogies about, like, you don't go into the comic book shop to get your indies, you don't go into the comic book shops to get your Spawn, you go into the comic book shop to get your Supermans and your Batman and your Spider-Man. And if something else is around there that catches your eye, then you'll pick it up. So, and I think, and when people talk about comics, we were quick to harp and to stay on, oh, look what they did bad this week, look what this happened, look at all these train wrecks that are happening one after another.
Is this the part of the conversation where you contradict the past 10 minutes of you were just talking?
No, I'm not kind of but yeah, I mean, what I was saying is that, like, I want to see some kind of centralization, some kind of unity, even if it's not really working in tandem. I'd like to see in the American comic book industry from the indies of some kind of web or tapestry, maybe to go against the big two, maybe to say, okay, this and that, because I think that's one of the main reasons why the manga works so well, because their society is about, I mean, the society is about the group over the individual. The saying is, the nail, what is it? The nail that sticks up, no, the nail that stands out is the one that gets hammered down. That's a Japanese proverb. Basically, if you want to stand out, chances are you're gonna get hammered down to be with the rest of the group. Um,
Yeah, but at the same time, that's also encouraging the exact same problem we have.
mhm,
That's man. If I get deeper involved in the conversation on how much money we owe to Japan and China, I think I won't get just demonetized. I think I'll get my channel completely shut down. Um, and why that is the way it is. So I'm gonna stick to the comic side of it. I think it's demonstrably false that you actually need the big two to stick around. That you even need comic shops around for
mhm,
for comic book creators to succeed. We see it day in and day out. There's hundreds of people that are living proof that are doing. I'll tell you this right now. There's about 70% of the comics that are on the market
mhm.
and that are making less than most crowdfunded comic creators.
Yeah, surgeon's
That
law.
that's a lot of comics. So these aren't people, and these are even people sometimes that work at the big two. In independents, you're probably talking about like 95% of independents that are through distribution in
Mhm,
comic shops that are not doing anything close to the numbers that crowdfunding creators are doing
mhm,
when they're firing on all cylinders. Alterna in and of itself, something like King Cryptid never would have had the numbers it had. Even when we did the pre-orders through Diamond, I think we only generated like $4,000 in sales for the
mhm,
most part, per offering of 5 to 6 books at a time. It's a very bad system. It's a broken system. It's a system that is built on complacency at this point, and was built on swallowing up competitors. It's
mhm,
the opposite of it's monopolistic, which is an antithetical idea to capitalism. It's closer in line to socialism and communism and
yeah,
fascism, because all of those are predicated upon a monopoly.
yeah,
So once you have that monopolistic structure in play, nobody else can compete. That's the whole
mhm,
name of the game. So it works the same way with these bigger companies that put out all this drivel and buy up shelf space essentially, and the
mhm,
retailer falls prey to it. So if
yeah,
the retailers all decided, you know what, we're not doing that game anymore. We're not going to buy that crap anymore. And some retailers have, and kudos to them, and they're diversifying their offerings. Many of those retailers are doing better than the ones that are refusing to do that. So the idea of the comic shops, that's great. I love them, and I hope that many of them can figure out a way to turn around, but many of them don't want to. Many of them don't want to do the things necessary to offer things to a broader customer base. They don't want to even organize their stores. There's so many of them that you walk in there and you're like, this is just like someone's garage, someone's very messy garage, where I'm lucky if I can find anything in here. And meanwhile, everything in that store is for sale. They should be selling it. So just that alone, going into that and going, wow, if I'm going to put out a new book among the ranks of everything here, the chaos, how's that going to actually get to anybody? How's anybody going to browse to see my offering? So someone coming in there, and then if they stock it, that's one thing. But then if they don't, that person is just going to kind of turn around and go away. Most people that would be new don't even understand, and even some people that have been going shopping at comic shops for years don't even understand to go then talk to the retailer, and then hopefully, and I say hopefully because most still don't do this, hopefully they'll offer the ability to then special order it through Diamond. But then even if they do that, then it's dependent upon Diamond to get that order to the publishers so they could ship those books. I know firsthand that doesn't happen. We lost 16,000 reorders because Diamond didn't send anything to us. And I'd be begging them, and I'm seeing them pile up. And they get auto-canceled after a month. Month after month after month. Hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of issues. Auto-canceled. We lost over 16,000 reorders in a year and a half because Diamond wouldn't issue the invoices for us to send them the books. And if they don't issue you the invoice, what they do is if you send them books, if I see like 300 books are piled up in the system and I send them 300 Blood Realms, let's say, and I go, okay, they're going to need these. I'm being proactive about it. They will throw them away and fine us $150 on our account.
Yikes.
And they did that once, and I never did it again. And they said, don't send anything unless we send you the invoice.
Yikes.
I was like, all right. So the system is broken in so many ways. It is so difficult to do business in so many different ways. And then even then, if you go to that shop and there's a book that you want and they don't have it and they do the special order and everything else and everything goes right, Diamond then gets it to me, I get it to them, yada, yada. Now you're talking about almost 2 months sometimes between you going to the shop that day and then me getting the book to Diamond and then the shop getting that book to you. Sometimes up to 2 months can happen in time between the way everything works out. You might as well just order it direct from the website. And if you got to wait a couple weeks, which most of the time you might not even have to. If a book is in stock, you're maybe waiting at the most 2 weeks, 2 months. Now you have to order the next issues the way that the system is worked. But you don't even know what that issue is like that you just had because so the whole system is like a back. It's I can't even explain the chaos effectively enough. It is so broken. So that's why the whole system with centralization, because that is centralization. Centralization is great on that respect if it works.
Yeah, if it works.
But largely, it would have to be run by people who logistically understand what they're doing, and their motivation as a distributor is to grow the footprint in which they're selling and distributing. So we don't have that in comics. In comics, it's blood from a stone because they don't want to grow that footprint outside. They want to make sure that it's as many people, we keep it as insular as we can, and that's it. And it's predicated on how many people are going to take a risk and open up a comic shop and then open an account to stock comics. That's the entire business in terms of the traditional market system. It weighs upon that factor alone. It doesn't weigh on storytelling. It doesn't weigh on anything. It doesn't weigh on the iconic nature of characters. The whole thing is dependent upon a person wanting to open up a store and then open a distribution account and stock that store with new product. Well, That's it.
let me pause you
that is
for
a
a second.
precarious position for an entire industry.
Well, let me pause you for a second. What I mean when I say centralization, just to go back to the very first thing that I said, like being introduced, I know manga from stores, from retail stores. I've never stepped foot in a comic book store until last year. No, actually, no, early this year is the first time I've ever stepped foot in a comic book store. So, when I say centralization, I'm not really talking about the comic book stores, the direct market. To be honest, I think you had the right of it. I think comic book stores should be cut out completely. And if any kind of retail situation is going to go on,
I'd love to see comic shops go back to what they were.
yeah, the spinner rack or the newsstand.
Well, no, it was a secondary market.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
if comic shops went back to being a secondary market and it wasn't predicated on pre-orders and all this other crap that is killing a lot of these shops and burying them in debt that they're never going to afford, because it's like a weird casino where you can't ever cash out. You just got to keep getting more and more financing to build up the debt, which is a house of cards being built at the distributor as well. So essentially Diamond owns a lot of these shops because they owe them so much money. And I know that for a fact. So because of that system, if comic shops were able to instead go into it and have back issues and stock whatever it is they wanted to stock, and there wasn't an order minimum and they didn't have to do with whatever, and then they can get like the latest crowdfunding and put up a crowd, and many of them should do this, put up a crowdfunding section like as seen on crowdfunding, and and work out that whole thing and get out a couple of crowdfunding books from people and that kind of an arrangement. That'd be great. Even a local author section. So many shops could do that very easily. Go to a local comic convention or 2 or 3. Go up and down Artist Alley. Say, hey, I run this shop. Can I get this book for half off? I'll put it in my store. But no shops really do that. So that they're not about what would need to be done at that level to build up that store. And then because of the fact that everybody's depending upon that system to work the way it needs to, the whole thing is a mess. And then that's just one of the messes. But I know what you're saying in terms of like, you know, it'd be great for people to go somewhere and then they can find everything they want to find. And that's obviously, you know, the convenience structure is great. But at the same time, for that to happen among a group of independents, to form a collective, essentially, to have that structure, the most you could do, you would need one or more people to set up essentially a website where they could have it set up as a store and do that kind of a thing where they purchase whatever from people at a discount, and then they'll sell it on their store. And then you can have a centralized location. I think it would have to be a store.
Because I'm thinking, what if it was a website that I guess aggregates everything, and if you
could do that, but then people would go, I don't want to pay shipping here, there, and everywhere else. I'd like to go to one place, and then because then if you're a customer and you're doing $10 shipping here, $10 shipping there, $10 shipping, and then if you're international, forget it. You're paying even more. So I really think it ends up becoming a situation where you look at it and go, yeah, that's cool that you can see everything there. But if you're going to then go and shop at each respective place, it's going to become a nightmare for the consumer. So it would have to be, and we don't even really have many of these type of shops occurring within comics themselves. I think we have, Midtown, TFAW, DCB
closed down.
DCBS. I don't think TFAW closed down, did they?
A Midtown, I think.
No, there's no way. If Midtown Comics closed down, see now, if Midtown Comics closed down, they order like probably 30% of the books.
It was a major store in California that closed down.
Oh, okay. No, that's not Midtown. That's let me see. Well, there's a couple that have closed down in California.
Yeah, it was a really big store.
Yeah, but Midtown's in New York.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a bigger store, but yeah, Midtown's huge.
Okay.
So so those bigger retailers would end up controlling more of the market and being more vital as opposed to the publishers at that point. But anyway, so you would need something like a Midtown Comics for independence, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to then you can have everybody have their books there, and then people can go to that site and then order it in one place and kind of have this aggregate retailer. But to
Okay.
me, I think eventually that will happen. It's just it takes time to do that. I think if we see like we're looking at it from the vantage point of this industry is upwards of 80 or so years old.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say in modern times 50 to 40 years old in the modern incarnation of what we're familiar with for the most part in comics.
Yeah.
If you think about even 10 years from now, if everybody's on the path that they're on and they're growing and they're innovating and they're getting their stuff out there, because you have to as an entrepreneur, as an
Mm-hmm.
independent, you have to constantly innovate and come up with new ways to improve and get out there. You can't hold on too long to an old way that's not working, because it'll kill you a lot faster.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to be innovating, getting their stuff out there. I think in 10 or so, even 5 years, I think we're going to see site stores or even maybe a comic shop retailer that's more on the ball than some of the others, that starts reaching out and being more open to stocking these independent books and selling them and getting people to go, hey, you know, I'm the shop that wants to stock all the crowdfunded independent yada yada kind of books. And then what happens, right? Everybody does their marketing for them because
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to be like, oh, get my book is on this site. It's at this
Yeah.
store. And that's another big thing that comic shops, when I was in that uh, aspect of the business, they didn't seem to understand the power of marketing on that level. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't say, go to your local comic shop. My comic is there. Why? Because only 10 to 15% of comic shops actually stock your comic. So
Mm-hmm.
chances are that the 80% to 85% or so that don't stock it, if that person's shop is that shop and they go there, you just pissed that customer off
Mm-hmm.
because they feel like they were lied to. But meanwhile, you're like, well, what can I say? I don't really know which stores do it. So I started accruing a whole entire retailer list that I used to publish in the back of the issues, where you
Mm-hmm.
could see like alphabetized among the states of which stores carried Alterna. So
Yeah.
I used to do that. We did that for about a year or so when we were in distribution, have the whole back page dedicated to retailers that carried the books. And I can't tell you how many retailers don't seem to understand the power behind that kind of marketing, behind being able
Nope.
to shout out that store and, you know, acknowledge them that go to that store and put them in the mindset of people out there. So it's unfortunate. There's so many things that are not being done that could be done and that won't be done. And that's why the whole system is infuriating. And I'm glad I'm outside of it. But when
Mm-hmm.
I see people on the inside that are like, oh, it's as easy as you fix that one thing and everything else will fall into play, I'm like, man, you are providing a massive oversimplification for an unbelievably complex problem at this point. You gotta address at least partially each aspect of the industry: the publisher, the creator, the retailer, the distributor, what's going on at every single level.
Mm.
If you want to even have a hope at putting a band aid on this decapitation. Otherwise, don't bother. Just do what you're doing and then just show, which is the proper way, I think, honestly. Show the better way by being the better way. And then people will notice that and they'll come to it. But if you're constantly trying to fight the system within the system, that's not going to work.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think fighting. Honestly, I think the direct. I'm a type of person that likes to overthrow things. So, like where my allegiance, quote unquote, lies is with the independent creators, with Alterna, with people outside of Marvel and DC, because I want to enter the comic industry in some way, but I don't want to be part of the conglomerate. I think we should just let it die and find innovative ways to bring the independence into the mainstream, quote unquote, because um because like one thing that I think I'm getting my thoughts confused, but I think one thing that I think is that yeah, you have the right of it. I think you're saying that there are other things that need to be addressed, but I feel like the independents have already addressed those issues, like when it comes to the writers, the editors, because they're all self motivated and stuff. Now we need distribution. Distribution's a main thing. Distribution and consistency. I think those are the two big. Well, yeah, two big things. And I think another main issue is target audience, because I've noticed in a lot of these crowdfunders, the target audience is usually the older set that have already have their nostalgia for comic books. I've asked some kids, I've asked grade school kids, teenager kids, kids in high schools, what would you do? Would you read a comic for such and such? I've mentioned stuff like King Cryptid and Tinseltown. I asked them what would they read, and it was very weird to see how embarrassed they were about, like, I don't read comics. One person did read comics, but he was really quiet about it. He's just got I don't read that stuff. But they'd proudly say about manga stuff
Yeah.
that they read.
Because
Um,
it's still embarrassing. They were really cool
mhm,
for a shining moment in like the late 80s to the mid 90s.
mhm,
And then comics publicly embarrassed themselves all over the place. And then they got a little bit cool again
mhm,
around like the Walking Dead time period. So like the mid 2005 sort of time period. And then, man, did they crap the bed around 2015, 2016. Unbelievably embarrassing across the board. I
yep.
think, again, we're going to see in 5 or so years where it's more becoming defined to be, independent comics,
Mhm,
independent creation across the board, because more and more people are going to be having access to be able to become independent creators. They're going to find that going the corporate route isn't viable, but going the independent route is.
yeah.
And as that happens, it's all about every single thing. I use this phrase a lot, but every single thing is a war of attrition. It is about how much
Yep.
can you last. How well are you set up to just stand the test of time? Because eventually your audience, not only will you find them, but they will find you.
Yep.
There'll be people that will grow up to a certain age, want certain things, be at a certain mindset, whatever it may be, and they'll start looking for those things. And if you're still surviving, you're still there, you're still doing what you're doing, they'll find you.
Mhm,
And they'll also be doing all these other things too, like getting in the habit of creating and understanding. You don't have to just go down the one traditional system. There's many different avenues you could take, especially independently. And I think all those systems will continue to grow. And we are going to see at some point in time, we are going to see an aggregate kind of store.
mhm.
And that's with a secondary market that's created outside of the crowdfunding. The crowdfunding is almost going to resemble the pre-order kind of mindset atmosphere,
Yeah.
and then you're going to see the secondary. And I see it all the time with Alterna because we do both.
Mhm,
So we're going to see that eventually where someone or many people will create these kinds of things, and it'll
mhm.
become like these go-to sites. They don't have to be at a brick and mortar store. Anyone that ever tells me about, oh, it has to be brick and mortar, otherwise it's never going to succeed, I'm like, yeah, because Amazon's doing so bad right now. Um, yeah, so it doesn't need to be at a brick and mortar store. It could be just somewhere that's accessible. And if it stocks, let's say 100 different creators,
Mhm.
they got their crowdfunded books, their successful books. That every one of them's a winner. They got them all on this one site. Every one of those creators is going to mention that. It's
Yep.
instant marketing within and of itself. So if anybody's out there that is more inclined, not creatively, to make comics, but to still be a part of it, and is savvy as a retailer, and doesn't mind spending their days kind of wheeling, dealing, and shipping, and
Mhm.
being that distributor slash retailer,
Yeah.
um, you could do that. You can then have a viable business working with people getting in their independent books. But I think we're only just a handful of years away from seeing something like that happen, and then probably 5 to 10 away from seeing that become like we know specific sites are a go-to. The way someone says Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and most people know what you're talking about, it'll be like comicbook.com, comicbookshop.com, or whatever. And people will know, oh yeah, that's where I go to pick up all these things after I missed them from crowdfunding.
Like an
So
actual working comicsology.
yeah, yeah, and it'll be a place that people can go to, and then that'll happen. Um, but again, I think it takes a lot of time and effort and patience, and we just, I think, are getting out of this mindset of being on the defensive all the time. And now we're going to start seeing more people being proactive and on the offensive in terms of being creative and innovative and finding new and better ways to get out there. But it's a transitional phase right now for a lot of people with that. But as far as like the mainstream stuff goes, I think the more that we don't spend time looking at them and concentrating on them, the better. Because it's like Sodom and Gomorrah. Don't look back; you'll turn to stone.
Yeah. That's not me, Paster Dan. Follow Xerd on here. That's not me, Metal Shade.
Oh no, yeah, that's Isaac Bell, who should have been on the show tonight, but he has not said a word all day today. I hope he's okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, a question. Have you ever followed your boy Zach or Diversity in Comics? Have you ever watched his videos or not in a long time?
Oh, maybe years ago.
There was an idea that he came up with recently. How do you feel about this? He was also saying, forget the direct market, as in like the comic book stores, just let them develop their own industry on their own. They're a lost cause, right? Get the comic book, bring back the spinner rack essentially. Get the comic books in the brick and mortar stores, not like what they tried with Walmart, because you could find them at the bottom of those bundled up in plastic at the bottom of those DVD cases that nobody looks through. Get them at the front of the register, and in the front of the register, the comics would have ads, but not like random ads. It would have QR code coupons inside the comic books to incentivize the purchase. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that
Yeah,
that
I
would
mean
be
that could work if you're ever going to be on newsstand. The best thing that you could, you got to pay for that spot, and those spots can get expensive. But if you're ever going to pay for placement within newsstand, that should be the place where you go. Always at the register. Don't get set up in a display in the middle of an aisle or anything like that. Go for the register. That's the only place that's going to work out. Because then even if people don't buy it, they see it, so at least they're aware of it. But yeah, that definitely works better than putting them anywhere else.
Yeah, sadly, manga doesn't have the. Sadly, in the sense compared to American comics, manga really doesn't need to do that anymore. Like, people will go to the back of the store to find it. Barnes and Nobles has a massive size of manga, like an entire shelf, and then the American comics is like in a corner off to the side. Take any Barnes and Nobles, Borders books are closed. Just anyone look inside. Yeah.
The only thing I'm confused about, and then I got somebody else waiting, and I'm gonna almost 20 minutes to 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The only thing I'm confused about is the QR code aspect of it. I don't understand that part too much.
Basically, the reason why he said QR code is because if you put the ads in and you have coupons for the comics, or you have the comic and you get the coupons in there, right? So the kid could go to his mom and say, "Hey, look, there are coupons in here. Purchase this book for me," right? It'll damage the collectability if it's a regular cutout coupon. So you would use the QR code for them to get the coupon on their phone, and then when they go to the register, they can use that instead. So it keeps the collectability of the comic still intact.
I still don't understand the coupon code system though, as being a driver for that within the book. Would that be would that be a discount on the next issue? Is that what it is?
No, the coupon. Oh yeah. He was talking about, how basically nobody really buys newspapers anymore.
Okay.
And like newsprint, people that print a newsprint, they largely make their money from those ads that they send. What are these, like those supermarket ads? that they send to like people's houses or stuff like that. I forget what you call them. Um, like, do you ever get them? Like they show up on your doorstep and just like come to this store, Best Buy or whatever, or
Oh
come
yeah,
to
it's
this
like it's a direct
shop.
yeah, it's a direct mail campaign, or you get like grocery store flyers, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those QR coupons would be from like Sprite or or the store itself. Like if you could strike up a deal with the store itself to sell like Wegmans or stuff like that. So the parent would probably buy the comic because her next purchase would get her a discount on this item in the store for her practicality, and the child would have the comic
Oh,
because he would
that's
be
oh
yeah.
man. Um, I get the idea. I don't like the idea of that though.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of that. It turns the comic book into a coupon book,
But yeah, like
and that's.
you'd have the two tiers. You'd have the
I mean, does manga need that to sell? Does manga is
mm-mm.
manga loaded with like coupons for Snickers bars and Stouffer's meals?
No, I mean they have the notoriety, and one thing that they did do that really was something that I don't think that should be that is actually, yeah, it comes with the whole centralization that I think that a group of people
I,
should get together
I think
with.
the only way, okay, so the only way to me that the coupon thing works is if
Hmm.
if it's, that comic's free now. Is that comic is 100% ad supported.
Yeah.
So now it's justified as to why there are some big ugly grocery store coupons in my comic book.
Yeah.
So if it's free, and you could do that if you're good enough and you're known enough and you sell enough advertising, you can produce that entire comic for free on advertising revenue.
Yeah.
And you could say, hey, I got a circulation of 1 million. So our circulation numbers justify the ad dollars. Let's say the ads are like $500 for a full page, or you divvy it up however you want. But then that comic would be for free, and it would
Yeah.
be set up as a different placement along with the auto trader and whatever else that's outside, usually the grocery store. It really wouldn't be like a for sale kind of item.
Mhm.
I think that's coming at it from a very like I'm such a loser, I don't think this will win kind of approach. That like I gotta sell them on some pie and some gravy train and some cat
Yeah.
food coupons, and then they'll buy my comic because there's grocery store ads for mom.
True. True.
So that's not cool, and kids want cool. So if
Yeah.
kids are gonna get anything, it's gonna be because it's cool to them. So if we could help it, less ads would be great, or ads that are tailored to the audience that's reading the book. If mom's reading the book, then mom gets the coupons for the
Yeah.
for the grocery store or whatever. But if the kid's reading the book, you'd want to talk more to like video game manufacturers or whatever to have ads in there, and not
Yeah.
necessarily coupons, but just to sell them ads based on that.
That's
So
true.
it's like I get the thinking, but at the same, and it's a good idea with the register placement. That's the best place for any kind of placement of anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, uh, man, I don't like that coupon idea thing.
Uh, Before I get out of here, you jogged my memory onto something, and I gotta say it before I leave. And maybe Alterna could do this. One of the key factors why manga has a huge hold in America is the monthly Shonen Jump. It was a monthly subscription that people would sign up for, and in the book, it was a giant book. It was like, what do you call those giant trades or something? Like the big omnibuses. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
okay.
about the size. It was about the size of an omnibus, and in it was the floppy copies of an issue. So you'd have like Tinseltown, King Cryptid, uh, 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 Rippaverse, whatever, like very small issues,
I'm
chapters.
guessing that it's the same publisher that's putting these out.
Yeah, yeah, they all belong to Shonen Jump. So and that Shonen Jump was a huge influence in America because of that. So it would be Yu-Gi-Oh, it would be Naruto, it'd be Dragon Ball Z, it'd be Yu Yu Hakusho, all these big heavy hitters inside the book. And individual chapters of issues, so that when somebody read it, they would go, "Oh, I like this book. I like Yu-Gi-Oh, right?" and then they go on the shelves and find the individual Yu-Gi-Oh, and then they then follow that line of the manga instead of just getting the entire jump. Or some people would just stick with the entire jump and then get their stories distributed through that way. And I think that since Alterna already has a whole bunch of properties, you could probably do that with a monthly subscription of like, here's a sample of all our different stuff.
Yeah, you'd think we could, but it wouldn't be worth it for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't have enough books to justify it. There's so many books that are out of contract. There's a lot of things within the contract being creator owned that wouldn't be a possibility.
Mhm.
And then you'd have to create and print that book.
Yeah.
And so to put that together and then composite that, people would be like, so why don't I just buy the issue that's on your site? Why do I got to buy this whole book full of stuff I don't want? That would be the mentality of not like discovering things. Again,
Yeah.
if we had a different setup, then that would be different.
Yeah.
And you'd need proper distribution channels for that. So
Yeah.
wherever manga is getting out there, and I've said it before, even about Funko Pop, they got way better distribution. Comic companies should be talking to whoever distributes them
It's the grocery stores.
and get it with them. So that's the thing, though, is the distribution is key, absolutely key, and in comics that's just not happening. But I gotta let you go. I got two
Thank
people
you so
waiting,
much.
and I'm
Thank
gonna
you
wrap
so
up
much.
soon. Thank
All
you,
right.
man. Appreciate it. Have a great night, brother.
You too.
All right, Gerald, what's up?
Hey Pete, how you doing? Can you hear me? Because I'm actually on my phone here.
Oh, I hear you. Thank you for being patient with that.
I was listening to your conversation. I was going to jump on something else, but I can kind of piggyback on the last conversation and talk if you want. You were talking about researching how manga is done from a business model. And
Yeah,
I've
sure.
experienced and understanding that. And one thing we've always, they've been talking for a couple of years, indie comics, manga, mainstream, and how manga is over here is killing everything in terms of sales. And what a manga Japan, at least for years, maybe not recently, it may have changed, but I still think it works. It's all performance based and pull based in terms of popularity and sales. I don't know if you understand.
Oh,
how
yeah,
that-
yeah. I know that's how they do it. I meant more, I wanted to do a deep dive into the corporate narrative and structure
Yeah.
of like parent companies and who owns who and where they generally seem to lay their interests. I know a lot about how Marvel and DC and even some of the indie companies that are subsidiaries to other companies work, but I don't know much about the manga ones. So I'm gonna have to take a look into that. But yeah, I know it's like performance based and everything else, and and that's how it should be.
Yeah. A lot of it is you'll have anywhere from I think 3 to 6 weekly collections that come. Like he was saying, like the Shonen Jump is one of the biggest one that's been around for a long time, and it's basically a weekly collection that comes out every week of like 10 strips, we'll say. And what they do is they publish it. The mangakas, they actually have to start a comic market. It's called where you like indie. You take your self-published comic. There is no weekly comics really that come out over there like here. Excuse me. They come out in collections. Excuse me. And what happens is you go to these comic markets with your your homemade photocopied manga, and you hope you get discovered by somebody at these 3 to 6 different big magazine publishers that come out weekly. They're everywhere in Japan. They're in grocery stores, everywhere. Excuse me. And what happens if you get discovered through that, or you submit it? They have a collection of 10 weekly strips. We'll say like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z would be, and like maybe 8 other ones were weekly published by Shonen Jump. What happens is they'd have a thing in a book you'd buy that you'd submit through email, a poll, pick your number 1 to 10, what's your favorite? And the idea is the mangaka that's in there, you want to be in the top 1 or 2. So every week you get a week basically up to 10 days.
Okay, so the readers are greenlighting a series effectively.
Popularity,
in a way.
yes. And what happens once you get in there, you're basically in competition against, let's just say, 8 other creators, 8 other weekly titles that come out. And you have to have every week you have to turn in 10 pages, we'll say, write them, draw them, screen them, ink them, everything. And you usually have assistants, and you keep submitting it every week, and you update your story. And it's about, basically readers, like they would submit, like me, if I were reading Alterna, Pete would send a thing saying, here's my books I publish every month. what are your popular top 5 if you say you have 5 titles? And we'd email you. Nowadays, in the old days, you'd send a postcard in, and you'd say, "This is number 1. I thought this story for this week, this Naruto was number 1, my favorite."
Yeah.
What happens is how you stay published every week is you stay at the top. And once you start dropping to the bottom and you're consistently at the bottom, they start to review. You have an editor. Each mangaka has an editor team that they for their book, and they meet with them and say, "Well, you're number 10 this week. Can you write a better story? What can you do? Can you improve the story to get up in that?" And if you can't, you get dropped, and they have others to bring in a new one, and we're going to try a new one here. And the next step is, if you're popular, like an example, Naruto will say, for years it was number 1. They said that the publisher Shonen Jump say, "Well, you know what? We're going to take and bring a collection out now. We're going to do a volume 1. We're going to collect the last 2 years of your book, and we're going to put it in stores with our thing where people can buy Naruto who haven't read the back ones, weren't able to pick up, because over there they throw a lot of that stuff out. It's disposable.
Yeah.
They don't collect them, and that's another sales tool. So what happens is they'll sell like 2 million copies of that volume 1 of the first, let's just say 10 chapters, 2 years worth of Naruto, and that's $1 million. That's $1 million, and the mangakas get a part of that as a profit, and the publisher gets it. Then the next stage is a mangaka. After you get volumes, you hope that a animation company is it's so popular then
it gets an anime. Yeah,
and it becomes a TV show. Then you hope it becomes a movie.
So yeah, I mean that's a great way to do it, because they're taking, it's like they're taking a lot of risk at first to not take any risk at all later on.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly performance based, and
Yep.
but at the thing of it too is like, okay, so let's say that happened and that was the structure with every publisher in the comic industry of America. The distribution has to change, even if it was possible.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. Like you said, they're everywhere. It's a part of the culture. It's a part of it's just another viable form of entertainment for them. Man, that would have to be, there'd have to be so much change that occurs here for that. That'd be cool to see.
Well,
Don't get me wrong, that'd be awesome. And even if it was just treated as a monthly composite as opposed to a weekly, I think it would still be possible, and it would still be something that people would be into. But man, everything you just said is just like, yeah, that's why they're doing better than. That's a big reason why they're doing better than the American comic industry.
And that's why there's such a diversity, because they pull readers. What kind of manga would you like to see? That's why, an example, a manga about, let's just say, a butterfly and a bee flying together in the woods can become a great selling manga, because they ask. They go out and they get the readers' input, and even people that aren't even like consistent readers, but like even young kids to adults say, what would you like to see? What kind of manga would you like to see us publish in our weekly thing? And it's weekly, so we think comic artists have it hard
weekly.
here.
Whew.
Over there, they have to get 10 pages done in like a week, and that includes writing, inking, penciling, inking, screening. So once you become established as a mangaka, and you've been years having your mangas published, you start to get assistants that are understudies that, you'll draw the pages, the figures, they'll go in and do the eyes, or they'll do the backgrounds while you're getting it. It's like an assembly line. And the goal of those assistants under you is to become their own mangakas. That's what they call them in Japan. Mangakas with a K-A at the end.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me a lot of how it kind of used to be in the comic industry.
Yeah, with Neil Adamson's Continuity Studios.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, and they don't really talk. A lot of the shows, the shows I'll see on YouTube talk about how manga is popular and how it's killing us, but nobody really talks about how the business model works over there. Like we have Shonen Jump Monthly over here, like he said. Well, those are just a collection of top selling.
Yeah.
From the weekly, they're not the same weekly that's put out there weekly. It's a collection of like top books that were selling, stories that eventually, when it became their own life in cinema and film and just pop culture, then eventually you want your character to become an action figure in the stores. And that's when you like Rumio Takahashi. She's a famous mangaka. Did Rama One Half, Inuyasha, and a bunch of them. Well, that's how she became established. and that's the goal of manga. It's all performance based and popularity, and that's how and they slave over there. They have to get 10 pages done a week. Over here, you'd be like, oh my God, try to get 10 pages done and get it to because they're counting on you. If you're late, they don't have something to put in there.
Yeah, man. That's why I'm saying, maybe it's more feasible here for people doing it on a monthly until, but
exactly.
But man, weekly. Good grief.
And the other thing I won't bring up now, but I was going to get into talking about how a website is important. Part of me, were talking about the creators wanting to have their book and put into work. Well, next time when I come on, I'll talk about how even I found with my website for my comic, I'm adding two individual pages. One's like a museum page, like I mentioned, talks about my character's family history because they run a museum. Then another page on the Japanese sword and the history of the sword and how the sword's made, because they're sword forgers, blade forgers, and it kind of adds to the book and adds narrative other than just the book, and then how a website can be used as a tool to just expand your narrative in between issues or between publications.
I honestly think so much of this is so new for so many people, and a part of it is everybody needing to understand that aspect of it. That there's so many people that this is, we can't see it right now, but an entirely new industry is being built, but it's being built not in the way that any other industry has ever really been built before. So it's just comprised of so many individuals and independent people, and everyone's being as entrepreneurial as they could possibly be, and it's going to kind of create something really cool, but something that you can't look at it and go, well, ape the corporate structure of what some other publisher did. It's just not going to work out. It's something that's completely new and is taking shape. It's almost impossible to talk about with any accuracy other than talking about the things that have occurred, because what can occur is so all over the place. The possibilities are limitless. But at the same time, I mean, this is really going to be driven by how people want to do what they want to do. It's not going to be anything where there's a directive from some corporate structure and, that kind of a thing. So people really have to hone in on, I guess, how they want to get their stuff out there, what they want to do, and how they want to manage to kind of cut through the noise of everything. And everyone's going to take their own way to do it. But I think at the end of the day, everyone's going to kind of benefit from it, because everyone's going to get inspired by each other, even kind of work together in some ways, and then also be competitive in other ways. And I think we're going to see something really unique come out of it. But it's difficult to really pinpoint it and show and say it'll be like this, because some people have said, oh, it's kind of like, what is happening now is sort of like what happened with Image. Not really at all, though. So it's like there's all these different things that you could say, yeah, a little bit, but not really. And I think that is kind of something difficult for people to fully grasp, because it's not going to be the same thing as anything has ever come before it. So we're going to see a lot of people that are making their own stories, of course, but getting them out there in all these different kind of ways. And I think that's where the majority of the risk taking is going to take place, if anything. That part of it is all of this right now is uncharted territory for so many people. Everybody's just figuring out as they go, and I think we're going to be learning from mistakes, but it's going to take time. But thank you so much, man, for coming on again and shedding some light. Really cohesive analysis there of the manga system.
Yeah, I have just two real quick points before I go. That was an ad. You have to look at it as an indie creator. When you say the corporate structure, you got to look at yourself. I am the corporate structure. You are the corporate structure.
Exactly, yeah.
And the most important thing is, at the heart of all this that we do as creators, is the character and the story. Make that, first and foremost, make a good character and a story. Like I was saying, then you have the website. Then you build the narrative with the book. You have the book, then use the website to build the outside things that people, if they care enough about your character, they will say, oh, I love the book. Oh, they got more on the website. I'm going to go to the website and look more into the mythology, kind of like TV shows will say and movies do nowadays. Because, example, like the Godzilla movies, the legacy ones are legendary. Well, now they have the TV show that's on Monarch, and people are seeing the movies like I'm doing. You watch the movies and say, wow, the show fills in the gaps between the movies. So now I'm going to go get Apple Plus. I'm going to pay Apple to subscribe to their thing so I can fill in the dot. And it's, especially nowadays, that's seems to be becoming a thing. You're looking outside of the source of just the book or the movie or whatever project. There's other ways to support it, whether it's CDs or audiobooks or digital comics to support it.
Diversification is key for any business.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that's so important even among this level. But Gerald, thank you so much, man. Have a great night. Good talking to you again.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, Pete. Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Man, oh man. So yeah, at the start of the show, anybody still watching that's been here since the beginning, I said a quick half hour tonight.
It turned out to be a lot longer than that.
Just a little bit. What's up, Rob? You'll close out the show.
All right. Couple quick questions. And I only came on the show because it's been so fire and it's very entertaining. But my local comic store, so I moved down, I'm in Jersey. I moved down here a couple years ago, and I was going to my local comic store, and they were carrying Alterna. And we talked about this, but for some reason they stopped carrying it. And I asked the main guy, and it wasn't the owner. They're all nice guys, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I asked the helper who works at the store, one of the coworkers or whatever, like why it was that you stopped carrying Alterna comics, and he told me that it was you stopped going through Diamond, and it was a direct market type thing. But my whole thing was, isn't it easier to order direct market and to get those comics and actually cut out the middleman and get a cheaper price? Because anytime I've ever ordered,
oh, you mean like order direct from the manufacturer, from us, the publisher?
From you, yeah. When I order from you, it's a 2 or 3 day thing, and it's here. So why do you think it's a problem for comic store owners to like?
Everyone has their guesses on that. Some people say that some stores are afraid of Diamond pushback. Some people say that the stores are, I mean, I don't want to be mean, but some people say that the store people are lazy and they don't want to take the extra couple minutes. Some people say that the stores just aren't even aware that they could do that. But in my experience, I think it might be a combination of all three and maybe a couple other factors I'm not even mentioning. The biggest reason that I say that is because of just personal experiences I've had, and then experiences I've heard people like yourself have had where they talk to retailers about it. And it seems like the conversation gets nowhere. Almost as if the concept of even ordering direct or using even the internet it is heresy in some kind of a way. It's strange. I went to a store, local shop. I said this happened years ago, maybe about 5 years ago at this point, 2018 or so. And I went to the store the first time, and I was like, "Oh, you guys have any Alterna?" And the guy goes, "Alterna? Aren't they? They're not with Diamond anymore, right? Didn't that publisher close down?" And I was like, "That'd be news to me. I run the company." And the guy's face gets all red, and he's like, "Oh, I must be confusing it with something else." Now, instead of the guy even looking in his store, going to the computer, doing anything that resembles a modicum of salesmanship or customer service, immediately tells me, the prospective customer, that this publisher is out of business. A publisher that at the time we were in Diamond, a publisher that is in business. We were having 2018 was one of our best years at that point in time, especially. It was before like the big craziness of August 2018.
Yeah.
And for them to then say that, all I could think is, how many stores out there are just like, I don't know. And then that's it. They move on with their day. I talked a little bit about it before where I'm like, I'm so tired of going to the stores and giving them customer service. It's insane. So in your store situation, it should have been like, oh, I can order them online directly from them. I'll go check that out. And then they just go right to our website and then just send us a message through the contact page. Hey, I used to carry your stuff, but you're not in Diamond anymore. I want to start carrying direct. Is that possible? And then I would get back to them and be like, yeah, you get a bigger discount now than you would have got before. Plus, we give stores free shipping if they order this amount. There's no minimum and blah, 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 blah. The whole 9 yards. And then they just would have been able to do that, place an order, and probably would have got it within a week or two, depending on what they did order.
That's
But
exactly
instead-
the impression I got. It broke
Yeah.
my heart a little bit because when I first moved here, I was like, look at this great comic book store, and it almost felt like a 90s comic book store, like all these amazing things. And then like after a few months, like going in there and asking them like, where's all these indie comics that you had carried? They were like, oh, like whatever, no big deal. And then even after a few months of going there, after they had told me that, it was all Funko Pops covering even the graphic novel section and things of that nature. And it's heartbreaking. It really is. And you wonder why comic book stores are going out, like.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, hey, flood your whole store, turn it into alternative depository.
No, yeah.
You know,
but I mean,
you
come on.
stock like 2 or 3
Yeah.
of each one
They had
that's
quite
currently
a
in
few.
stock. You
They
don't
had
even
quite
end
a
up
few
as a
titles.
retailer.
They had
Yeah.
quite a few alternative titles when I first got there, and then they had none. And I
Well,
asked the guy, and it was like, well, he doesn't go through Diamond. It was a big issue, and it felt like laziness.
Well, this is when I knew that our days would be numbered with the direct market, and it happened before the Diamond reorder fiasco. When we first put out the newsprint issues in 2017 of May and June of 2017, it was like a tidal wave. So many people were excited about all these things. A lot of the issues were selling out. I was seeing the problems come up with the reorder process because we would sell out of issues immediately and hundreds would start piling up, but we wouldn't start getting the orders. Beyond that problem, the thing that really made me go, this is not good, would be retailers would go, yeah, I ordered 40 of that number 1, sold out the first day. People are so excited about it. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, how many are you guys going to get of number 2? It comes out in 2 months. I'm going to get 10. I'm like,
Bad business decisions, I guess,
I'm like, why are you getting 10? You sold out of the 40 in day 1? You're not
Yeah.
even going to order half. You're going to order 10. You're going to get a quarter. So we're going to have a quarter drop off. I'm thinking, wow, if that's how that's going to be, none of these titles are going to survive. And all that's going to happen is that people are going to fight on the secondary market, which they did. Fight on the secondary market on eBay, trying to get books that are priced at $1.50 at the time, trying to pay $7 to $8 for them. When I'm sitting on 500 extra copies that we printed to make up for reorders that would come in, and I'm sitting on them here going, where the hell are the purchase orders coming in?
It's sad because I do want to support my comic stores and my local comic stores, but when that happens and they're not carrying what I want, like I'm gonna go directly to you and I'm gonna order it directly from your website, and that's good too, supporting you and all.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love what
and
you
I
do.
mean, in a perfect system, I'd love it where we could just make the comics and ship the comics to a distributor, and then the distributor gets them out. It takes a big chunk of the time out of everything. You wouldn't even really have, if that was a real viable option, you wouldn't even have that many people going through crowdfunding. So it's the fault of the retailer and the distributor not understanding that all those crowdfunding dollars that are being sucked up right there, and no one gets them from retailer or distributors, that is a big hit. That is lost, and then that is not being able to be grown. But that's the fault of them for creating a system. It's kind of like back in the 90s when everyone would get a rain check for everything constantly. Nothing would be in stock. It'd be like, oh, the rain check, come back or whatever, right? And then online ordering started kicking up in the mid 2000s, especially. And all the brick and mortar stores are like, oh, online stores, online orders are killing us, and come and shop at the. It's like, okay, but I will, but you never have what I want. So it's like you guys created that situation where then people go, oh, I'm going to set up an online shop, and then they can order stuff here, and have it be in a specific place where anyone anywhere can order this. Just go to the website, order it, pay shipping, and we get it to you. So it's like this whole situation that's come out of crowdfunding has been created because of faults of distribution and retail that no one wants to talk about, no one wants to mention. Even publishers talk about it. The retailers, oh, they're the lifeblood of the industry. No, the readers are the lifeblood of the industry. The customers are the lifeblood of the industry, not the retailer, not the shelf. The shelf isn't the lifeblood of the industry. That shelf is gonna have books in there that languish for 40 or 50 years that go into like $1 or a 50-cent bin eventually. Yeah. That's not the lifeblood. If that's the lifeblood, we're all dead. We're all zombies. Yeah. So it's if you can't get the readers and the customers excited and going into the stores and able to shop and effectively find what they want to find and be helped and be encouraged also to like, hey, you like this kind of book, maybe you'll like that one too. Check this one out. If you're not dealing with knowledgeable retailers who can not just put a book on a shelf, but can then tell the customer about it, direct them to it, help them, greet them when they come in. I've been in 30 shops or so in my life. Not a one of them has ever even mentioned the previews catalog to me. Yeah. Even when I talked to a lot of customers when I was saying, let them know about the, pre-order the books, and because the whole system is predicated on pre-order. If you don't pre-order, that's it. The book is dead. So if you can't get people in the shop to pre-order the book, that you might as well not even make the book. So the way that whole system goes, if you don't have the retailer then also encouraging use of that catalog and the pre-order system and say, hey, take a look. There's a lot of stuff in here that might be interesting to you. If you don't have that and you can't count on that happening, that's my livelihood. That's everybody's livelihood, counting on these individuals to do that job. And they're counting on themselves to do that job. So it's like the whole system is broken in so many respects. It's not just like the SJW, woke, whatever crap that people want to talk about within the books themselves. Business-wise, that's what's led to that happening. It's not get woke, go broke. It's got broke, went woke. Yeah. Because you're looking for a totally different audience to make up for the audience that allegedly doesn't want you anymore. And in this case with comics, it really is because of the fact that where are you finding comics? And then when you do find them, you're like, wow, it's one in like 20 stores maybe that's going to feel like a great shop. The other ones, it's going to feel like you just stumbled into someone's like hoarder's nest in their creepy garage.
Now, one last quick question, and I'll let you go because I know it's late. Your stream is fire, by the way, this night. Awesome. Really enjoying all of it. Since this has happened, have you noticed an increase or decrease in alternate sales when it comes to direct market as opposed to being more in comic shops?
What do you mean?
And feel free if you don't want to answer that, that's okay.
You mean are we doing better now than we were then?
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes because it's a very tricky metric. Okay. As we know, what sells through to comic shops isn't what sells to the reader. So it's generally like 60-70% of the stuff that gets ordered sells to the reader, unless like they're really taking a bath on it. So when it comes to that, I would say that we don't see the tremendous drop off we used to see. Like it used to be like a 60% drop off from issue 1 to issue 2, and then by 3 or 4, I'm kind of thinking like that's it. That's why we mostly did 3 to 4 issue miniseries, so that I wouldn't get a series canceled on me by Diamond because of poor sales that had like nothing to even do sometime with what we were doing, because issue orders would be coming in for number 2 when number 1 just hit. So no one knows how 2's going to do when, so we should have spaced it out maybe every 3 months, like do quarterly offerings if we're going to have that kind of system. Every publisher probably should do quarterly offering instead. There's more than enough books to make it fine. But to me, it's a tricky number to say, because in some respects we're doing better, and then in other respects we're doing worse. So the one way we're doing worse would be if you just looked at the quantity being ordered. It would be like, okay, that's worse. So let's say that 1,000 orders would come in through Diamond. You go, wow, 1,000 issues are going to Diamond, right? That's not even a lot. That looks like pretty bad looking at it now, going like, oh, we're only doing like 400 or 300. You know, in some cases there's books that are around 300. That looks horrible compared to 1,000, until you consider the fact that you lose 62% of your sale when you go through distribution. Wow. So a third of that is really what you're selling. So if you sell direct 333, that's like selling 1,000 to distribution. So if you sell direct 500, that's like selling 1,500 to distribution.
That sounds like a good thing.
Yeah. So you look at it and go, well, there's less quantity, but the money is still relatively the same amount of money. Now, only in certain cases did we have books that were like 3,000 or 4,000 at Diamond on issue 1 or something, let's say, and then it would nosedive to like 2,000, 1,200, 800, and then eventually towards the end, especially because everything was so bad by like late 2019, we saw a bunch of books hitting in the 500 range. 500 range at Diamond was like, I mean, what's a third of 500? That's like, what, 150 books? You know, that you could sell 150 books direct. We were outselling then at that point direct what Diamond was ordering from us. So it made total sense to not stick with Diamond at that point and to stay.
Sounds like quality over quantity.
Yes, yeah. But then what happened, and we would do even better quantity wise, but we went from having about 60 to 70 retailers that were ordering direct from us when we were with Diamond, to now we're not with Diamond and we've got like 8. And I don't know if those retailers went out of business. I don't know if business got so bad that they decided to curb comics and they lost a lot of customers from that or whatever. But they really helped to inflate the numbers, which helped to keep some of the print numbers up. But in terms of it going to a reader, I'd much rather sell 300 books that go directly to readers than sell 1,000 and maybe half of them go to readers.
I like that.
So there's pros and cons to the entire system, but every aspect of distribution at this point, I can't even begin to tell you. If we were still in distribution, I wouldn't make King Cryptid at this point. Okay. It is so time consuming. It's unbelievably stressful. And every single aspect of it puts me in a position that I'd rather not be in. And I'm starting to not want to be in that position anyway. I'm getting really tired of trying to motivate the unmotivatable.
Well, it's great that you're making King Cryptid because I enjoy it, and I'm happy that.
Yeah, so I'd rather do that. Put my energy into that kind of a thing, and and then surround myself with anybody at Alterna who's highly motivated and wants to get their stuff out there and really cares about their work, because you need that to last and stand the test of time, because it's gonna take time to get that off the ground. It's gonna take a solid 5 to 10 years. Honestly, it's gonna take at least 10 years. 10 years. So like Blood Realm, let's say, came out 2018. I'd say in 2028, and I already had this talk with Rob, I was like, if you can keep doing and building and building and building, I'm telling you, between 2028 to 2030, you're going to notice, wow, all of a sudden you're a 10-year overnight success.
It's funny you brought that up. I'm reading Blood Realm right now, and I think it's fantastic. Yeah,
it's an amazing book. So I said, if you're there for it, and I tell this to all the creators, and some of them go, oh my God, 10 years. I'm like, yeah, it's going to take like 10 years. I'm like, but if you look back at your whole life and you weren't willing to give yourself 10 years of something you allegedly love and care about and means a lot to you, and it could change your entire life in a positive way, and you said, no, 10 years, I can't do that, then Adios. Good luck. Because I can't be around people that are like that. That you don't want to believe in yourself, invest in yourself, work towards it. Then I'm thinking the whole time, well, why the hell should I? I got things I want to do. I got things I believe in. I want to be around people who believe in those things as much as I believe in the things that I want. So if people they want to get it, they want to work towards it, they want it. That's what they want to do with their life. It means something to them. Now, I want those people around me. I don't want people around me that are just like, the moment this is work, I'm done. This is a hobby for me. This is my fun time. Okay, then make it your fun time and leave me out of it. It's that kind of a thing.
You're a great businessman, even a better creative, Pete. Thank you. This stream was fire tonight.
Thank you,
I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. And all the best to you. Have a great night, brother.
You too. Take care.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Holy smokes. We that's the longest half hour in history. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions and comments in the chat. Buddha Bear tomorrow, or tomorrow. It's still tomorrow. 11:24 here. Tomorrow I'll be sending out a new All-Star code along with a couple new exclusive items mentioned in the All-Star members exclusives part of the page. So look for that email coming to you tomorrow. And all the other All-Star members too. Look for that as well. And if you do want to become an Alterna All-Star member, feel free. We got a bunch of different plans on there you can purchase. You get all kinds of different benefits from it. The lowest plan starts at $100, all the way up to $300. And it's for an annual subscription. But if you use code ALLSTAR, all caps, no spaces, you save $50 on any plan you want, and you get access to discounts. The discounts more than make up for a lot of it, but if you get like the higher tier, man, you start making your money back right away. But you can go to alternacomics.com/members and become a member on there, or go to alternacomics.com/allstars and become an all-star member too. Again, use code ALLSTAR, all caps, no spaces. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But you should. It's fun. And you get some good stuff out of it. Nice big old discount on a bunch of different things. Every single month a new discount. All kinds of great stuff. Other than that, go check out all the great comics at alternacomics.com. We got a hell of a lot of them. Easily over 150 or so comics on there at this point. Up to about 350 to 400 items, something like that. A lot of great stuff. I know it's 11:30, but I'm still gonna go pack up some stuff and ship stuff out on Monday. So I got today and tomorrow to do it. Anyways, I'll be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night will be a fun show as well. I already know he's gonna be here. I already got confirmation. We'll have Razor Fist on the channel at 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night for a talk about pop culture. So everybody, take it easy. All the best. See you guys tomorrow. And until then, have a great night and an even better tomorrow. See you guys.